We have lots to discuss in today's video, including the latest trade rumors around the NHL. Today we're looking at some teams like Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, St. Louis, the Islanders, the Devils, as well as the Predators, the Oilers, Caps, and Flyers. Lots of trade talk around the league here today. We have a signing in Dallas. We have some updates as well on potential overtime changes the NHL could be considering, plus more recaps from the four-nation face-off tournament. We had a big game last night between the U.S. and Finland, and we'll tee up the next set of games coming on Saturday between Sweden, Finland, and Canada, U.S. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Let's kick things off first with some more talking about the four-nation face-off tournament. It's been a pretty solid tournament here so far. We've only had two games, but both games have been pretty entertaining. Lots of solid action. Of course, we saw the Canada-Sweden game go Wednesday night, which we discussed yesterday. And then last night, we had the U.S. play Finland in the second game of the tournament, and the U.S. had a dominant 6-1 victory. Although it was really a pretty close game in the first two periods of play. Finland actually scored the first goal of the game as well. Looked like it might be a scenario where the underdog Finns might put up a good fight and, never know, maybe try to squeak one out. But, slowly the U.S., tied the game, went up 2-1. But that's kind of where things stood going into a dominant third period where the bulk of the action really was done. To open the period, they scored two really quick goals in the first, I think it was the first minute. It was like 11 seconds apart or something really close. Then they got another one shortly after that. Then they added another one again. A 4-goal third period really exploded the U.S. to a dominant 6-1 win. But after two periods, it really... you could say that the U.S. was probably the better team and had more chances, were leading in shots, but at the same time, it was still a close game. You just didn't know how things were going to go. Both Tkachuk brothers were dominant last night. They started the game on separate lines, and then late in the second period, Mike Sullivan decided to put them together on a line with Jack Eichel, and that was a wise move. Of course, Brady Tkachuk scored 2 goals. Matthew Tkachuk had 2 goals and an assist. Eichel had a couple assists as well, and that line was their best line of the night. There's no doubt about it. Both Tkachuk brothers were dominant. I know the player of the game, according to the what they announced on the ice, was Matthew Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk was second star. But in the room after the game, which we saw on a video posted to social media, Team USA gave player of the game to Brady. Now, of course, what they're using for player of the game, which I thought was pretty cool as well, is they have a Team USA Johnny Gaudreau jersey. Of course, with the accident, this past August, Johnny unfortunately didn't have an opportunity to be there in part of this tournament. I think that he most likely would have been selected for the team had he still been around. So clearly, he's there in spirit. They've had his dad around helping out with a lot of the practices and just being around the team as well, which I'm sure is helping. It's a very nice gesture in helping with the family as well. So great that they are still acknowledging and honoring Johnny, and he's still there in spirit, helping them acknowledge the top player of the game. So it was a great gesture. U.S. was dominant, and that'll set up some pretty important games on Saturday. So, of course, now in the standings where you get 3 points for a regulation win, you only get 2 for an overtime win. So the U.S. has 3 points, Canada has 2 points, Sweden has 1 point for an overtime loss, and Finland has 0, unfortunately. So on Saturday, we have 2 games. The early game is Sweden versus Finland. That's set up because of the time difference, that their game will be on in prime time back in their home countries. And then, of course, later on, I believe it's 7:30 or 8 o'clock Eastern. I think it's 8 Eastern for puck drop. Pretty standard across this tournament here. Canada versus U.S. on Saturday night, which is what I know a lot of North American fans, at least, are looking forward to as well. It could be one of the greatest games that we've seen in quite some time. These two teams are both stacked. They're made up a little bit different, but we saw last night that the American team has lots of speed. They're not afraid to play physical, lots of physicality on that team as well. So Canada, I know, was going to be making at least some minor adjustments to their lineup, even though they get the win. Right now, we don't know who the goaltender is going to be. John Cooper today spoke to the media, would not confirm it. So that tells me and gives us some doubt that it's going to be Binnington. You would think if he was sticking with his starting goaltender that He had said before the tournament that he wasn't planning to do a rotation. Do you think he would have just kind of reiterated that, and he didn't? So it makes us wonder if maybe Aiden Hill's going to get the call against the Team USA. So we'll see about that. Cale Makar was not at practice today. He was sick due to an illness, so was Makar going to be feeling better enough to play? There's hope that he would be. It'd be a big loss if he wasn't able to. Cooper could not confirm or make a prediction that he was going to, but he said that he was pretty confident that he would be, which is good. And apparently, according to NHL insiders as well, who've been checking with the league because of Makar's illness, if he, for any reason, was unable to go, that would drop them down below 6 defensemen. So where they had Thomas Harley on standby, he was supposed to be heading to Boston to be able to be around in case they needed an last-minute injury replacement. But instead, he is going to be allowed to come to Montreal just in case Cale Makar is unable to go. But expectation is right now he probably will be. And, a lot of reporters are saying that from what they've heard, that Thomas Harley wasn't necessarily the absolute first choice from the Canadian brass to bring in. But at this point, a lot of players that were not selected had vacation plans and, may not even be in the country. So it's certainly not... no disrespect to Harley. If he's a good selection, he's a very adequate defenseman. He'll be fine if he indeed does get into the lineup if they do suffer any additional injuries. But it's believed that, at least a couple of other players probably were ranked a little bit higher on their wish list here. But, we'll see what happens. Part of the reason why Sanheim was selected as well is because he's played on both sides of the ice. He can play right and left defense. He's a little bit more versatile that way, and they needed that just in case injuries. So that's why, part of the reason why as well, that he was a good choice for a number 7. They didn't necessarily see him playing all the time in the top 6, but no matter who got hurt, he was able to step in and take the spot. So that part is good. In the Sweden-Finland game, we do know as well that is going to be Kevin Lankinen stepping in for UC Saros, and it'll be once again for Sweden will be Philip Gustafsson. Another change for Canada as well is going to be Sam Bennett coming into the lineup. With the U.S. being such a physical, fast team, they want Bennett in there to be able to help provide what he can do, because of course he's a very gritty player in that sense as well. And the belief is probably going to be Travis Konecny coming out to make room for Bennett, but that's not confirmed. Bennett was skating in the forward position at practice today, whereas Konecny was kind of playing for practice and line rushes as a D because of Makar's absence. So we believe that's what's going to be, but we'll have to confirm that a little bit later. Should be some fun action of hockey, though, tomorrow throughout the tournament. It's been a pretty good tournament so far, and I expect that to continue. One of the things we saw in the Canada-Sweden game was the expanded 10-minute 3-on-3 overtime. Elliot Friedman on his latest 32 Thoughts podcast today with Kyle Bukauskas was talking about how he expects there to likely be another conversation about expanding how long those 3-on-3 periods are. It's 5 minutes currently. There's been discussions in the past about whether or not that should be expanded. I know listening to some players, they said no. Other players have said yes. The players would certainly have a major say here as well. Any kind of rule change like that, they would be very much consulted and have to vote in favor of. Elliot was saying that he doesn't think that there would be enough support to push it all the way to 10 minutes, but he can see it maybe going to 7, which I think would be fine. If you take a look at a lot of overtimes and how they've gone, even adding that extra 2 minutes would be big. To give them that little bit extra time to get some goals and cut down on the number of shootouts would be, I think, a great thing. Because of the 10-minute overtime, they were doing the TV timeouts and the breaks as well a little bit differently. So I'm not sure if the NHL would have to make some adjustments in that respect here as well. But certainly another interesting concept that I hope gets looked at here over the summer. Another signing as well today, and this time in Dallas. They've extended Sam Steele, the former Anaheim Duck, who spent the last couple of years in Dallas after getting there, after not being qualified as an RFA by the Ducks a few years ago, has been playing a depth role with the Dallas Stars in the bottom 6. He signs a 2-year extension at $2.1 million per year. So that's a pretty good raise and a pretty good contract for Sam Steele, who's, like I said, a respected bottom 6 player for Dallas. Now, on the trade front, I want to take a look at a few things here. One piece comes from Elliot Friedman. The rest is an article from Frank Saravalli, dailyfaceoff.com, that I want to take a look at here today. Essentially, with today being February 14th and Valentine's Day, Saravalli said he called his article like basically the trade matchmaker on Valentine's. So he took a look at some of the top names that are on the market and picked where he thought was the best of all the teams that are, expected to look at, or even some that, maybe more of a better fit in his opinion as well. So some of this is intel based on where they're linked and rumored to, and some of it is just an opinion from him. But one name that came up was Scott Laughton. Of course, we know the Flyers seemed at this point, it's been confirmed by enough sources that they very likely are going to trade him, but they need to get the value in return that they're looking for. And as of right now, they haven't gotten that. And in Frank's article, he basically says the first team to put down a first-round pick is likely going to be the team that ends up getting the deal done. Of course, we've heard about Toronto. We've heard about some other teams as well, like Winnipeg. But he suggests the team that might be the most willing to pay the price, and it could also be a good fit, would be division rival, the Washington Capitals. So the Capitals are a first-place team in the division. They're likely going to be the first-place team in the conference. And certainly, with Ovechkin and company there, they're going to be looking to make another deep run. And a guy like Laughton could certainly help upgrade some of the areas. I know they have Lars Eller right now as a 3C. They brought him back earlier this year. They like Eller, but I think they'd like to bump him down to maybe the fourth line and upgrade on him in the third spot. And Laughton could do that. He could also move up in the lineup if need be as well. So the suggested trade, you could say, from Saravalli's article was basically a first-round pick to Washington, from Washington to Philly for Scott Laughton. So, the other good thing here that Washington does not need, which would make it appealing for Philly, is they're not a team that's out there looking for salary retention. They could actually fit Laughton into their lineup without it. And he's signed for another year as well, so he's not a rental. So it could be a scenario for the Capitals where Laughton comes in and helps the team not only this year, but next year as well. And could be a good addition for a team that's having so much success and still has some great prospects in their system. I mean, you still have Cole Hudson and Ryan Leonard on the way. So it's not like they don't have youth, and they're still, they have Connor McMichael, who's young. They're still hoping that Hendrix Lapierre, continues to develop and becomes more of a player for them. Mironishenko, it's not like they're short on young players here. They have a decent mix right now. I think they can afford to move the pick, not only because of the strong team, but the fact that they've done well with accumulating good prospects in recent years too. Now, Brock Nelson's a big name that's been, very much expected to be dealt at this point, but not a given. There's some speculation the Islanders might sign him, and we'll have to wait and see where things go. But Saravalli predicts for Valentine's here, the matchmaker is for Brock Nelson to go to Winnipeg. So not Minnesota, but Winnipeg. I know, like I said before, a lot of people think it's a given he's going to Minnesota if he's moved, and that could happen. It's not completely out of the realm of possibilities, but going to Winnipeg, according to Frank, might make just as much, if not more sense, and, it would be a great fit, even if he doesn't stay. But he feels like a team like Minnesota or Winnipeg would have a chance to re-sign Brock, that he could stay being close to home. Winnipeg, like I said, because of their positioning geographically, it's not that far from Minnesota. So for players from the area, it's still appealing, I think, to play for the Jets as well if you're looking for that close to home effect. Now the trade that would go down basically, as he predicted here, was Brock Nelson with 50% retained by the Islanders to Winnipeg for Rasmus Kupari, a first and third round selection. So they get a couple of good picks and a player that could help their bottom six. So, Kupari might have a higher upside if he gets more opportunity, but generally he's been a bottom six player so far during his run in the NHL. I like the deal. I think Brock Nelson will be a great fit in Winnipeg. I think this trade package is reasonable. Especially we'll see how he plays here in the next little bit in the Four Nations, as well as the few games after before the deadline. But he's not having his best season. I guess you hope that, if you're the one making the addition here that he, can pick things up. So we'll see where things go, but Winnipeg could be a sneaky good spot for Brock Nelson. He also predicts Michael McCarron going to the Edmonton Oilers from Nashville for a second rounder. Now, of course, the Oilers might be in very deep cap situation here. We don't know exactly what's going to be going on with Evander Kane, and he speculates in his article that it's not a given that Kane's going to be out to the playoffs, and that they may not have a whole lot of space to work with. And if they can't make a bigger addition because of Kane coming back, that McCarron might be a sneaky good, smaller move to make the team better. So we'll see. I know early in McCarron's career, the big knock on him was that he wasn't a great skater. He's got big size, though, and certainly has some ability. He's progressed and developed into certainly a better player over the years from back in his day with the Montreal Canadiens. But it could be an interesting option for the Oilers. I don't love that deal for Edmonton. I think they might be able to find better out there. But he's certainly, if Evander Kane is coming back, he does fit the bill for the type of player that they'd be able to afford. Another name in Long Island as well, Kyle Palmieri, he predicts would be a great fit for the New Jersey Devils. A reunion, of course. Long roots in the New Jersey area, not just with the Devils, but prior to that as well. So certainly makes a lot of sense for Palmieri personally. He projects New Jersey giving up a second and third round pick to acquire him from the Islanders. It's not a far transition from a family perspective, which is good. And he would be a type of player that the Devils are looking for to add some more secondary scoring. So it's widely expected that Nelson and Palmieri will likely both be moved by the Islanders. And if these deals were to happen similarly as they just went down here, if these mock trades are close, then you're getting a player back in Kupari, and you're getting a first, a second rounder, and 2 third rounders. So to me, that's not a bad haul for these two players. So Kyle Palmieri makes too much sense for New Jersey. I've said it on multiple occasions. My only, wondering here if maybe it doesn't happen is they might go for a different type of player and trying to add more depth scoring. Maybe because they've also been linked to a guy like a Jake Evans or a Yoel Armia, wondering if they might make a play for that type of player to bolster their PK and, defensive side of the game. So we'll see. Now, speaking of Jake Evans, he's on this list here as well from Frank Saravalli, linking his matchmaker skills to send Jake Evans from Montreal to Toronto, which is not something you see very often, these two teams hooking up. He has a trade as being Evans to the Leafs for a second round pick and prospect Ronnie Hirvonen. Now, Evans could be a great player for the Leafs. He's a Toronto-born area guy as well, so certainly it's home for him. So he feels the Leafs might have an opportunity to re-sign and extend him so that it's not a one-and-done rental situation for Jake Evans and Toronto. That it could be an extended relationship there, obviously, which would be good if you're going to give up assets and you can keep the player. Even better, he would certainly strengthen the Leafs' bottom six. Obviously, they're looking for a centerman. He's a right-shot centerman at that. The only thing is he's not going to play high enough in the lineup to allow John Tavares to move to the wing, which was one of the options. But, obviously their bottom six center spots were also things they were willing to consider just to overall strengthen and deepen the position organizationally. So, we haven't seen many trades in the past between the Habs and the Leafs. It's a rare occurrence. But this one does make some sense. Now, of course, Armia out there is very much in the mix, and there's been some speculation that those two guys could be traded together. From a Leaf perspective, though, I think that would be very, very tricky to do. So I don't, if Toronto ends up being the team for either of these guys, I don't think it's going to be a package deal. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But could we see the Habs and the Leafs hook up on a deal? That certainly would be interesting as well. And of course, as we've talked about, the Blues are going to be a very interesting team to watch. On Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts podcast today, talked a bit about the Blues and how many players they have that are, supposedly out there and rumored to be available. Talking again about Blues captain Braden Schenn. Now, he talked a bit about the fact that, essentially he's not necessarily being shopped hard. It's just that the Blues are willing to entertain it. He's not an untouchable player. And if the right deal comes along where they can get a good haul, they will absolutely consider it. So obviously I seen an article today regarding this as well, and they had a mock trade, which I thought was too much overpayment. They suggested, because the Senators are a team that continuously gets linked to Brayden Schenn, and Elliotte Friedman did confirm on his podcast today that the Sens definitely were a team that had previously, not right now, but in the past, in the last 6-12 months or something, had inquired with the Blues about Brayden Schenn's availability, and they did briefly talk trade with the team around his services. Now, of course, it didn't get too far, obviously, because nothing happened, but there was some speculation from Elliotte that they're certainly very much interested and we're trying, at least having conversations. The article I came across suggested a return package of Shane Pinto, Jacob Bernard-Docker, a first-round pick, and a third. I say, well, that's way too much all day long for starters. They're not trading Shane Pinto. That's an absolutely non-starter. Now, JBD could be included. A first-rounder could possibly be included. A third-rounder could maybe even be included. From a cap perspective, you probably need more than JBD, though, so not really sure exactly who goes. I mean, would they take a guy like David Perron back to St. Louis? I know he's made many trips through there. Money-wise, that would help make it work. Otherwise, they might have to take Anton Forsberg. That might be a way to get it done as well. The Sens do have some options that way. If they free up money with Forsberg's contract and can get maybe a little retention on St. Louis's side, it could work. So it's hard to say exactly what the package would be. I know that if they take Forsberg, it would be just to make the money work. It wouldn't be long-term value here for the Blues. So I'm not sure exactly what it's going to take. That's the problem here, is that he's going to be an expensive acquisition, which is why he's also been linked to a few other teams, including Vegas. They seem to be creative when it comes to that. We know Kelly McCrimmon had Brayden Schenn through his program in the WHL as well with the Wheat Kings. So certainly a connection there too. But yeah, Brayden Schenn's a heart and soul kind of player. Obviously somebody that can help bring size, skill, and toughness to your lineup with good leadership and ability to score. So lots to like. I understand why the price tag is high. You just got a question for a team like Ottawa. Can they make it work? Can the assets be something like, Jacob Bernard-Docker, fine, that's a starting point. Anton Forsberg, okay, that's another starting point. They're going to want something, though, of higher value. Is it a first-round pick? Is that acceptable? Does it have to be a younger prospect? What are they looking at in that sense? So there's lots there that could be had, just a matter of what it's going to take. But at least we got confirmation 100% today from a trusted source in Friedman that the Sens were definitely one of the teams inquiring on Schenn, and I'd be curious to see if they follow that up and continue trying to pursue the Blues captain. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.